1 minute paper. Think of something in this class that you're clear about, something that you're not clear about. Okay, we're doing a 1 minute paper. We're writing down one thing that we're clear about, one thing that we're not clear about. Okay, who wants to go first? Let's go around the room and indicate something that you are clear about. Let's start over here.
So I said that I am clear about how ASP.NET can modify and dynamically use a web page to
Okay.
our needs without going back and having to modify the code for
haven't talked a lot about this. So we'll try to make a point to talk about this. Let's go next.
You talk about the scaffolding, the only thing I'm not clear about is the search tree, maybe because I'm having problems with it.
Okay, so scaffolding, search string. Did you get the email?
I tried it and didn't.
Okay, we can take a look at it next.
I think I understand a lot of creating the database, but I'm having a hard time, like if I mess up, without having to delete the database and start all over. So if I, like I want to add more fields, like I forgot a field or something, I don't know how to update that.
Okay, next.
I understand how to like make the forms and everything,
Huh?
but populating it has been an issue for me. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't with the same code.
What do you mean populating?
In the one tutorial has have a script that populated it, and it worked fine on both of my computers, but in the lab it didn't.
Populate the database? Okay. So creating scripts, populate database. Okay, next.
I'm in the same boat as Justin with that, understanding like the dynamic pages, but then implementing the database is kind of an
Okay,
issue.
so I'll put a check indicating 2. You can hold off for a second while we're writing down for the people just coming in, one thing that you're clear about, one thing that you're not clear about. Okay, do you have one?
I just got here.
Okay, do you have one?
It's basically dynamic pages and scaffolding. I'm not clear about how to do the scaffolding.
Okay. And dynamic pages and scaffolding. Okay, back?
I guess I'm pretty clear on creating the pages, but what I'm not so clear about is once the C data, and secondly, how to reference certain values of objects.
Okay, so what did you say was clear? Creating?
Like creation of the ASP.NET pages.
And you said seeding the database. And I don't remember the second thing you said.
Referencing certain
Okay.
values of objects.
Okay, next.
Customizing is something I'm having an issue with.
What's something?
Between like CSS and actually like code itself.
That's something you're not clear about.
Yeah, I'm just having issues with it.
Okay.
I think because of some of the internal CSS, but I'm not sure.
And what about something that you're clear about?
It's pretty much up there,
Okay.
all of that.
So something up here. All right. People that did not answer, do you want to give an answer now? Yes.
I'm clear on creating the Razor pages and scaffolding.
Mhm.
The one thing I'm not clear about is if you had a migration in wrong, how to reverse it.
Okay. And someone else kind of said that. So if you did something wrong, how do you back it out? Anyone else? All right. Good thought. Let me think. It seems the biggest issues are the database issues in Visual Studio. All right? So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to go over that in more detail. And let's do that, let's do that today. All right? I was planning on talking on something else, so this will be a off the top of my head lecture. So this is live television, all right? So we're going to see how good my improvisational skills are. All right, this is like whose line is it? What is that show?
Whose line is it anyway?
Yeah, whose line is is it anyway? Yeah. So I might fall flat on my face, which means that maybe this video will become viral to watch the ASP.NET instructor make a fool out of himself. Especially since, to be honest, I haven't been working in this mode for real long either. So we'll go and we'll refer to the tutorial because that has some good information on it, and we'll sort of work our way through it. I'll keep these up here, even though I'll bring the screen down. One word I want to say about customizing. Believe it or not, you're actually a lot better off with this than you were with the web forms ASP.NET, because this is a much more open environment. In other words, you can see everything that's going on. In the old school, what I taught last semester, spring semester rather, there were ASP.NET things that did stuff on their own. And it wasn't always obvious what they did on their own. And you might have to figure it out. And you had to work to sort of undo what it did on its own. So I don't know the relevance of that. But if you're having a hard time with this, it is actually easier than it was before. Maybe that will give you some comfort. You know, it's like it could be worse, I guess is what I'm saying. So I realize that is absolutely of no good whatsoever. But we'll start with that. So let's go, and I actually downloaded the application, but I'm going to re-download it so that we can talk about it some more. All right? So we can talk about it some more. Because I want to start with a fresh slate. So I'm going to close this. I'm actually going to reboot this guy because that refreshes everything. First of all, what does a migration represent? How about that? What does a migration in ASP.NET in this context? Core data, ASP.NET Core. What does that represent? What does that mean?
Takes all the data from a class you created and puts it into the database.
Okay, that's true. That's true, especially with the initial migration, right? Because, let's go and download. When you think of migration, you think of going from here to there, right? My sister has hummingbirds in her front yard. She has a hummingbird feeder and hummingbirds and all that. And she got really interested in them, and so she read about them. And apparently, they migrate from here to Mexico or South America or something, which is crazy, because those things really, they don't weigh anything. They're this big, you know? And to fly from here to Mexico, that's insane if you ask me, all right? But they migrate. They get from here to there. They get from their summer home to their winter home, all right? Must be nice, all right? The thing that amazes me too about hummingbirds, not to go off topic again, but they're these little tiny ones, but there's bullies among them. If you ever watch it, they will scare away, so that the hummingbird that's just a teeny bit bigger will act all tough and bully away the littler hummingbirds that are only this big. It's come on, there's enough of this to go around. Why are you being such a literally a little jerk, you know? But anyhow, all right. enough about that. So, I'm going to open up this project, and then we'll look at what we need to do to get it up and running. And at the same time, I'm going to go to the tutorial and pull that up. ASP.NET Core, ASP.NET Core works with something called an entity framework. All right? That's sort of the basis of how you do database interaction. All right, so I'm going to try to cover the stuff that you guys put up there, but I'm also trying to go a little bit deeper. So the method by which we do our database interaction is a little bit different than what we've done or what we've talked about elsewhere. All right? Essentially the idea is that there's a mapping, a correspondence, between a model and database tables. So every class in your model relates to a database table. It gets mapped to a database table. And in your code, you interact with methods in the model, and that affects the underlying database. So, for example, let's go and look at a tangible example of this. If we look at in one of our pages, let's look at leagues. Let's look at the index. We call a method on that league object in order to get a list of teams. What that maps to is calling the database and doing a select on that league table. So this would be select star from league. All right, it's the database statement that it maps to. So league is an element in our model. All right, where we describe what's in the model, the properties that are in there. When we do a migration and update the database, it takes our model, notices the discrepancies between our model and the database, and alters the database to match the model. Okay? So if we were to add a field in here, all right, if we were to add a field in our model and then update the database, it would say, hey, that field isn't in the database, the new one that we added. So it's going to go and update that. The other tables, if we didn't touch those other tables, nothing's going to happen with them. All right? So what a migration is again, migration, get from here to there. We're getting from the current state of the database to the updated version of the database. By updated, I mean that the database gets back in sync with the model. So if we've changed our model, it's going to make a corresponding change to the database. So, in this case, I have the migration from before. It's called initial create. This is what I did right off the bat in the, by running through the tutorial. If I look at that, what that has is, well, essentially the code to create the model. So as you notice here, what it's doing is it's creating the tables. It's creating an entity called League Models League. That's our league table that has the key, that has the properties in it, and then this finally goes and creates the table. It's interesting to look at this code because I think you get a sense of what's going on here. But the nice thing is this gets generated for us when we create a migration. All right? Here we're creating the players. Here we're creating the team. So we're going in and we're creating. Because remember, in our initial create, we didn't have any tables in our database. So all the stuff that we put in our models, all right, is new. So we had to create all that stuff. All right? Let me see what this is. Model snapshot. I think what that's showing is that's showing the current state of the model. In other words, the current condition of it. Now, I need to go and update the database because I just downloaded this app. So I'm going to go here and update the database. Oops. Updating the database, again, we'll take the model, we'll create a migration, and then we will update the database. So, I'm going to go here and I'm going to create a migration. Oh, I'm not in the tutorial. And I never remember these commands. And I also type in update database with an underscore about 15 times in a row before I realize it's a dash. So I'm going to add a migration. Now we already have a migration called initial create. So I'm going to call it initial create 2. It goes, does its thing. Maybe. Okay. To undo this action, use reverse migration. Let's remember that. Now, let's go and update our database. And the command to do that is update dash database. So now it's going and it's doing all that stuff. It's creating all those tables. And we should be all set. I'm going to run it to verify that. Start without debugging. If I go in here, yep. can create that. So let's look at the code that it generated. All right. Let's look at the initial create to migration. And we don't see anything in there. Why is there nothing in there? Why is there nothing in this initial create to? Because our model had already been set. And we didn't really update the model. We just updated the database. We really didn't need to create a migration for this. All right, because we already had our database. We just needed to run the update database. So we didn't make any changes to the model, and therefore nothing got put in there. All right, the model was equal to the initial creation. Now let's go and look at the database. And we're going to go here, SQL Server Object Explorer. We can look in our database. Oops. And we can see the tables that correspond to it. There's a table for our migration. That might be interesting to look at. It's probably going to be hard to understand, but might be interesting to look at because that might give us some insight on what it does. Let's go and view the data in it. All right. Yeah, actually, there's not much in it. It just tells us that the list of migrations that we have. All right. That was more boring than I thought it would be. All right, here we go. We have our team, or I'm sorry, our league. We have our player. And we have our team. All right, so it went and created that. All right. And I had already done the scaffolding, so I have all my pages. Let's go and add something to one of the tables. Let's go and add the league director name to the league table. All right, so we're going to go and we're going to update that. Now, I'm not going to update the database in order to do that, right? Because remember, this is model driven. I'm going to update the model. We're then going to do a migration to go and update the database from the model. So let's go in the model. As complicated as these programs get, I'm really hoping that we get bigger resolution projectors sometime soon, because it's really tough for me to position stuff so that we can see everything at once. All right, I'm going to go in the league, and I'm going to put in here a new property. Director name. All right, so I'm going to put in their director name. So I've updated the model with that. All right. Now, let's go and let's create a migration and update the database. So let's look. Oh. Wrong window. Let's go and create a migration. How do I do that? Or copy that. I'm going to give my migration, I hope, a descriptive name, so later on I can figure out what to do with it. So it's not initial create. This will be add league director. Now, if you can imagine, in the early part of a project, you're likely to be updating the database often, right? Because you're still figuring stuff out. Maybe you missed a table, maybe you missed columns or whatever. But later on, this could be like a version of the release of the software. So that, okay, when I'm done with this, these are all the changes I'm making that are going to get lumped into the next update. So we could include like a version number in the migration. So this could be migration for version 1.1, 1.2, and so on. All right, so add lead director. I create the migration. All right. And then I'm going to update the database. And it does its thing. And if we look now in the database, if we were to look at that, now the database contains a director name for the league. If we look at the migration, add league director, notice there's two methods. There's an up and a down. All right? The up method is when we're moving up to this migration. So if we have a database on the previous version and we want to get to this version, the up script is going to run. All right? If we want to go down to the previous version, we run the down script. And notice the difference between the up script and the down script. The up script adds the column. The down script gets rid of the column. Okay? So, let's say I wanted to downgrade the database. I realized that I didn't want to add the director name, maybe. All right? So, what could I do? Well, if you remember, when we applied it, they said there was a reverse migration. That we could go and type in add lead director. I'm saying to reverse it. It tells us that is not a valid name.
It's remove migration.
Remove migration. Thank you. let's go. Oh. Yeah, it's gone. If we look, we go to our SQL Object Explorer and look at the league. Notice that the league migration is gone, or the director name is gone. Only the league ID and league name. So we can use these migrations to get rid of migrations that have been applied. I'm a little fuzzy about exactly what happened there, so let me Google it. Remove migration. That removes the last migration. So you don't need a parameter. You don't say which one. It will remove the last one. You can do an update database to update to a particular migration as well. So I could say update database last good migration. So if I updated the database a couple times and I wanted to revert all those migrations, I could say update database and just give the migration I want to go to. Make sense? So this is how you can undo and create things. Now, yeah, go ahead.
Does it delete your data that's inside? Like when you updated the migration, does it delete or would it delete any other information that you had put in after the migration?
That's a great question. Let's see, because we added a couple leagues here. Let's see if those leagues are still there. My guess is that the leagues are still there. If you had gone in and added data to that column and then dropped the column, of course, the data in the new column would be gone. I'm wondering, what am I wondering? I'm wondering if you completely dropped a table. If you dropped something from your model and did a migration, that would drop the table. If it would drop the database table and you'd lose the data as well. That I don't know. But I'm pretty sure if I go into leagues, those leagues are still there.
If you would have added, say, League C. And
okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's try that. Let's add League C.
No, after you did the migration.
Well, let's go and add League C. We'll do the migration, then we'll revert to the migration and see if...
Well, no, it would be like if you waited and added the migration, come back and add League C, after you had that migration added, and then remove the migration.
Okay. All right. I got you now. So, we want to do the migration. So, I should be able to say update database, add league director. Oh. director name. Okay, let's try this again. I'm going to go in and say, how do we create a migration? Add migration. Add migration. Version 1.1. 1.1. Okay, we did that. I'm going to do update database. Okay, went and updated it. We can go in here and look.
It shows it under the actual columns, but it's not showing it in that window.
Oh, I wonder if it's just a refresh issue then. Yeah, there it is, just a refresh issue. Now, we're going to go add League C, and we're going to revert or reverse the migration, and then see if League C is still there, right? One thing that we are going to notice, though, when we go and add League C, notice it doesn't show that new field, right? Why does it not show that new field?
Those leads weren't created with the new director name?
Close. But it could show director name in a blank. But it doesn't.
Because the pages haven't been updated.
Because the pages haven't been updated. We scaffolded this before we updated the database to add that field. So we got a choice. We got two choices. All right? What are our two choices? Scaffolded again is number one, right? I could say, okay, I'm going to get rid of this and we're going to scaffold it again. What's our other choice? Manually go in and add the new column to all the pages. Which is a better choice? Yeah, I would say it depends on not just what you want to do, but what you've already done. For example, I don't think I've changed the director pages at all since I scaffolded them, right? So I didn't do much work to customize those director page or the league pages. So if I rescaffold them, in this case, it's probably no big of a deal because I'm not going to be undoing some custom changes I made. If, however, I spend a lot of time changing the scaffolded pages to put drop-downs in and to add searchability and to do this, that, and the other, and I made a lot of changes to the scaffolded pages, I probably don't want to go and rescaffold it because then I lose all those changes. It might just be easier to go in and manually make the changes. That's the path that we'll take in this class, in this lecture right now. Because even though I didn't make any changes, it's pretty easy to rescaffold it, right? I'll just delete that folder, recreate it, and rescaffold it. All right? I'd go in here. Let me add League C. All right, close this. If I wanted to rescaffold, I'd just go here, right mouse on this, say delete. All right, that's going to delete everything. Then I would go in and just recreate it, rescaffold it, and I'd be back in business. Now, you want me to reverse the migration. So let's go and do that. Remove. Migration. I was just seeing if you were paying attention. Good job. All right. We have removed that. So it's already been applied. Revert it. Okay, that's confusing. I think. Okay, so it has not gotten rid of that because it's already been applied. I already did an update database.
I think what it wants you to do, because it says to use a new migration to revert the changes, is to go into where you set table headers or IDs and stuff, remove it, and then create another migration and update it with that.
Okay.
And I think that would revert it.
Okay. The other thing, okay, I could do that. I could go and delete it from the model, you're saying. Go delete it from the model, create a new migration, and then apply that migration, and that would reverse it. I think that would work. But I also think this would work. Let's try this. I'm going to update the database to initial create. So now it's gone because I reversed that migration. I'm not sure what removing migration does, because if you've already updated the database, it's going to complain about it and suggesting to do what you did, what you suggested, or what I did. The way you did would probably be the right way to do it if you just did one migration. The way I did it probably would be good if I wanted to do several migrations and undo several migrations, just to say, well, this is the one I want to go back to. All right? Does that make sense to everyone? All right. Now, I'm going to run this. I'm going to see what happens if I go and did I lose those pieces of data? Oh, because it's still in the model. All right? So I have to get rid of it from the model because I got rid of it from the database. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go in the model, and I'm going to remove that guy. I'm going to run it again. And all the leagues are there. Good. All right. Now let's go and finally put that league director in here. All right. So, I'm going to undo, maybe. I'm going to go here. Add migration. Lead director 2. Update the database. I might be able to Why is there nothing in there? see if I apply this. Okay, now it's being difficult with me. So I don't have that column.
Are you trying to add a migration?
I did up here. Let's try that again. Add migration. And we'll call it DB update 1. Build failed. Not very descriptive with the output saying that. All right. Well, let's Google. Okay, that doesn't work. Oh. You see what happened there? I was in the middle of this, and I must have started typing update when I was in the wrong window. So it put update in here. So it screwed up my migration, and therefore that's where it was giving me the error. I was really panicky, all right? You might not have been able to tell that because I'm a pro, right? My cool demeanor, got ice water going through these veins. All right, but anyhow, that was a problem. It wasn't anything we did wrong with the migrations. It was that we went and did that. Well, let's let's see, what time is it now? It's about 11:20, correct? Let's finish up now, and we'll go to lab, and we'll pick up more on this. Is this useful? All right, good. Despite the little difficulty I just ran into, hopefully we won't have that problem next time. All right. I'm not going to re-upload this because what we have uploaded is fine. Next time we'll talk about what happens if you go and add it and all that. We'll also look at updating as far as foreign keys, because I didn't do any updating to make sure that the foreign keys are implemented and all that. So and also saving data, so you don't have to re-enter data each time. So we'll look at that next time, more than likely. All right, we'll see you in lab.